Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Twilight Epiphanies Talk Radio with Cindy Magnuson, and the show is about to begin. So, slow down, take a seat, put your feet up, and maybe take some notes, because this show is about you, it's for you, and it is designed to help you receive exactly what you need to be a happier and healthier you. And hello, everyone, and welcome to my premiere show. I'm super excited and, yes, extremely nervous for being on air and going live. It's a little bit of a new venue for me to work through, but I'm diving in, and I think it will be perfect. So thank you so much for being here, those of you who were able to listen live and tune in with me and give me support. What I'd like to do is open up the show here with a little bit of direction. So I'd like to go into what the format of my shows are going to be, at least for these first 4 that I'm coming out here with, so you have an idea of what's upcoming. So tonight's show is primarily about the emotional freedom technique and how I use that in my work. And I've named the show Have You Got Your Pip On, which is referencing that emotional freedom technique can very much help you to increase your inner energy awareness of where you're having issues in what part of your body. When something is triggering you, you will be more alerted to, for instance, when you start downshifting, you're going to have more perceptual awareness that you are downshifting. So tonight's show is geared on teaching you about emotional freedom technique, and I'm going to be working with you as a group in the audience. I've sort of reformatted how I'm usually working with people in front of me in a classroom setting, and I will be guiding you into working with an area in your life that you have conflict with, some kind of a challenge where you want to create a change. So I will be leading you in tapping sessions, and we'll go from there. So the goal of the show is for you to potentially have an epiphany, an awareness, an increased perceptual awareness, an aha moment, and maybe finding the piece of the puzzle that hasn't crossed your path yet. Because when those moments happen, boom, there's this beautiful flow, and everything feels better and starts to fall into place. So that's what my heart is wishing for you and hoping for you. That is my entire bottom line goal. So as we're stepping out here, next week I'm going to do a show called All Things Numerology. So I'm going to discuss what I kind of refer to in many of the classes when I'm starting up. We clear away the can of worms. There's often a can of worms in reference to any topic that is being taught. We have slight different angles of perception on it. And I'm someone, in my personality and my purpose here is to sort of sit in the center hub and help people to merge the different perspectives and understandings. So they're not so much in conflict, but just a different way to express something. So we're going to look at how, when you do different numerology readings online, on the internet, how might you be getting a different end number from a different reading online. Actually, not an end number. It is a double-digit number. The end single number is always the same, but the double digits are a little bit different. And for someone, for instance, if they have a 4 energy, there's a difference if they're given a 22 or a 13 or a 31, for example. So we're going to talk about that, and then I'm going to give you, at the end of the show here, some information about how to get yourself your numerology reading. And I'm also offering a $5 discount price on an incredible package I have on my website, which will be able to give you 45 pages and your 2 map charts, which will take you from age 0 to 100. Okay, so the third show after that out is going to be called All in a Dream, and I'm going to be discussing creative dreaming. So methods of how to incubate dreams, work with, in a sense here, asking to receive a specific dream, how creatively we can use dreams in many different areas of our lives, and then how to analyze that information and how to then integrate it into our lives and utilize it in a way we call recapitulation. And integrating it means that we're looking at it to work with it so that we are reframing something in our imagination so that we don't have to experience potentially where we were headed in the wrong direction. So dream data tells us the future, and we're going to be working with that. The fourth show out is going to be called The Good, the Bad, and the Confusing About Reiki and Energy Work. I have been in the Reiki profession for, 20 years now almost. And Reiki has taken some hits recently because it is a discipline that can be acquired in a weekend or in a distant attunement process and learning process. And through the course of the years, I have heard and experienced every imaginable potential with that. And Reiki has in itself, when you are discussing the symbols, should they be secret? Should they not be shown? What do they mean? And so on. So we are going to start out with talking about that. I absolutely love Reiki. It is exceptionally wonderful and simple. I have experienced profound miracle experiences in using it, working in groups with others. And I am also going to be doing some distance healing sessions during that. So I hope you're able to be around and enjoy that. To be, in a sense, teaching, I'm more than likely will be answering a great deal of questions that you might have. And then I encourage you, if you have questions after the show, you can post them on either of my 2 pages on Facebook, which you can find that information. I'll either post it after this, or it's, I believe, already on Feminine Frequency Radio Network or on their page. Okay, so to begin, I don't want to go into a lengthy talk about my history and how I got here. I want to make it a little bit brief. I did just release recently a 30-minute talk about the C technique, EFT+, which is the work I do. And of course, it's going to be spanned out in how I do that in these next 4 weeks of talking with you. But that talks a little bit more about my journey. That can be found online on the pages. And also you can go to my website, theseetechnique.com, and you can see who I am within there. You'll get a little bit more of a feel for my background and personality and how you feel you might fit into that energy frequency. So most important is that I did have 2 awakening experiences, one in an early age, around approximately, I think it was 18 years old, and then one later on, 22 years ago. And that changed my life on a dime. And what changed my life on a dime was literally a very brief affirmational statement where I marched out onto my balcony. I had 1 lounge chair. I had moved into a condo in Tinley Park here. I was a single mother now of 2 children, and I had a lot on my plate. I marched out there. I had read in this book, it said, if you want your spiritual guidance in your life and that part of your life to be activated, then you have to give your will to doing that. And in that space, then I made the affirmational statement. I put the book down. I was laying in the sun, and it immediately promoted a very heightened Kundalini experience. And whether you want to call that Kundalini or an activation of dormant DNA, an anointing of the Holy Spirit, a clearing within me, it was very, very different from the energy work that I had already been familiar with. And in that space, I began to vibrate, and the vibrations continued way past what energy experiences I had already experienced while doing Reiki. And I lost all sensation in my physical body. So I went through a process of thinking, did I just will myself to die? Or is this maybe a flashback from the drugs from the 70s? I didn't know what was going on, but I was brave enough to just let it happen and continue. There was a feeling, a warm presence feeling in there that was in my own inner voice saying, in all my being saying, if you just continue what you're doing, I will guide you and everything's going to be okay. Well, I was not the same person after that, and that was literally on a dime. I was Johnny 5 robot seeking input, data input, and it was obsessive. So I started off with the History Channel and went on to all of the different disciplines that I'm working in right now. I've studied a lot of other diverse areas. I have an interest primarily in how did the world get to this place of contention that we have in division, at what everybody is aware of right now. So 22 years ago, that was hitting me heavy, and I had not been at all considering that before this. So this just sprung up. And what I want to point out about that is that did not have any indicator in my numerology chart, for example, that was going to happen. In numerology, if you have the letter Y, which is a 7 frequency value on the physical plane, you are going to be introspective. But there was not anything significant here. And the point of the story here is, to complete this, is that at any moment that we really decide something from a very centered space where we do not doubt the creation that we are intending, that space will have a very powerful effect. And in many sessions of emotional freedom technique, when I'm working here in the C technique with everything else, I've experienced that space where the room shifts colors, there is suddenly an echo in the room, and that's a signifier that we've become more coherent. And that is what I would like to help people to move into, to understand the creational power from that centered, coherent space. Because when I've worked with people and they have expressed their intentions from a space that we've already worked at to become centered and coherent, what I call the no doubt, no fear zone, no rebuttals, and a statement is made that is not controlling or limiting. We are allowing it to unfold as is, but from the absolute pure will intent, a person is stating, yes, I am ready for this creation. And that's when reality unfolds into that flow that we talk about. It's a space that opens up the miraculous developments and I have watched people make profound changes in every area of their life in working with this technique. So it brings me an immense amount of happiness and joy to be able to help to be that coherent space where when someone comes in, where you're at today in the listening audience, I meet you at the frequencies where you are at. We do some discussions and offer some new perspectives on those memory spaces that are causing you some kind of stressful situation. And then we work to bring you up as I assume what I am very familiar with assuming, a centered neutral space. You have the opportunity, and again, I want to emphasize this, I am not doing the work for you. I am holding space for you. If you are ready to tune back to neutral and create, then you do the work. And by people's affirmation statements here, when it has been in a situation with relationships, clients have been able to make a statement here, even to a loved one, where they shifted their perception of reality, their perception of the situation, and that changed the individuals and the relationships of others around them simply by this work here. So there is so much in depth that can be worked with here, and I'm looking very much forward to introducing that and going through these sessions today and working with you. So here, what's coming to mind is I would like to also state as I work with you, and if you are aware that you have a very serious issue in the mental emotional plane, and you may in a healing session potentially start to go out of body, as you may have done in the past when this situation occurs, and you may have a tendency to go into dissociative states, then I'm asking you to use your higher awareness to stop at that point if anything like that begins to happen, to have water available, ground yourself with some water, and only continue in as you are feeling able and as you are feeling safe. Okay, and generally most people have that awareness level already. If I have worked with very serious situations where clients who have come in here have been, of course, in experiences where they attempted suicide, and their history has been very challenging or is currently extremely challenging. So we want to work in a safe space, and as a medical disclaimer, I am not instructing this as a replacement for any professional needed care, and I'm going to leave it at that for you to also use your best judgment. I have had the opportunity to work with people post seeing and being on prescriptions, for example, for even up to 30 years. And I have had this sort of interesting relationship with the number 3. And a client who was on medications for 30 years worked with me for 3 months and walked in and made the statement that the 3 months of working with me twice a week and then once a week after a while and so on, that those sessions were more useful and valuable than the 30 years of what she had experienced. Now, I am not proclaiming at all that this is a better system. I am saying that What was missing, she found here. I am not, in my personal beliefs, an advocate of utilizing medications to mask symptoms. However, in the time that this individual did decide with me doing sessions here, she chose on her own to come off medications. She was under medical care. So everything here as we approach is an understanding that I think both disciplines need to be merged, used properly, and people who have been in my care who have had perhaps 3 months of care, and then they're telling me under a counselor, and they are saying this 3-hour class helps them to understand themselves deeper. Again, that is because these therapists prepared the individual to reach a state faster, okay? Nonetheless, EFT carries with it some very profound success results. So let's talk a little bit about Gary Craig for the last 7 minutes here before I take a commercial break. And when I come back from the commercial break, then we are going to begin right away with working with a guided healing session here. So Gary Craig is the founder of Emotional Freedom Technique. He is an awesome, incredible person. When he first discovered this, he was a Stanford engineer, and he was looking into becoming a holistic performance coach, a personal performance coach, and he wondered why it was taking so long in modern psychology to heal something. So he searched and searched until he came along to Dr. Roger Callahan's work, and Dr. Callahan had introduced the Chinese traditional medicine system of acupuncture, in a sense, by tapping on the meridians, as he had a client under his care who was an individual with a very big water phobia. And while he was working with her and it wasn't progressively releasing, he asked her, when she stated that she had a stomach ache in that session, and a stomach ache or headaches were part of her very intense water phobia, where it was difficult for her even to bathe her children and wash her face, that he instructed her to tap on the meridian endpoint, that is the stomach meridian. Right in that moment, her stomach ache went away, as well her phobia, and she ran to the bathroom and splashed water in her face and, proclaimed it's gone. That is the significant aspect of what EFT has to offer. The acupuncture meridian system is the energy template of the body, and this is like putting your finger on the light switch. If I'm sitting here and I'm looking at the light and I'm saying light on, light off, light on, light off, and nothing is happening, if I get up, walk over, put my finger on the light switch, then I have a connection to that and I can operate it. So when you connect into your energy system and stimulate it, that is one very important aspect of connecting your conscious thoughts to your subconscious, to your energy system, where there is a cassette tape, in a metaphorical sense, that is stored in one of these energy meridians that has stored the traumas of the past collectively in a type of memory that is kept at a space that is in the present as opposed to the past. And that's part of what is ongoing, because it is ready to be stimulated every time we may come across that point in our environment. So what we are doing is reaching that space and working to diffuse it. So Gary Craig's work, when he brought in what came from Roger Callahan, he decided, instead of even attempting to do applied kinesiology and tap on every single, and figure out what meridian the emotional issue and trauma situation is stored in, let's do the overhaul concept. And he began this little routine where he was tapping on every meridian endpoint, calling it the overhaul concept, and it worked perfectly. So now we are, our Gary Craig has this, and he has developed it, and what he does with it is he is selling his program and teaching people his program, and he is telling people, you have my permission once you buy my DVD programs here, that you are welcome to give 100 copies away of it. And that is how EFT partially spread so much through so many different areas. It is all over the place, and it has gone even on to larger venues. So he first of all developed, and if you want to go on my website again, under About Services, I have his original EFT manual there. He discovered that the cause of all negative emotions is a disruption in the inner energy field. And he felt that that was what was being skipped in modern talk therapy. So he added that back in, and it was very effective. He worked with veterans, and where it was taking years, months to years, he was reducing stress reactions in minutes and days, literally. All of that data is on the internet. And I'm sure actually many of you already have an understanding of emotional freedom technique because it's been around for a while. So Gary Craig has a little bit more, began with it a little bit more extensively, and then it went out into the public domain. And when it got into the public domain, it diversified. Nick Ortner began to work with it. He now has the Tapping World Summit, which was started in 2009. There are hundreds of thousands of people who attend it, and EFT has its staying ground. The program to study it now is very extensive. It is beautiful courses where you are being trained professionally. So, okay, we are getting ready now to take a commercial break. So what I'd like to do is ask you that if you want to participate in the upcoming time, that you have pen and paper available, because we are going to be taking some notes that you are going to be reading from. So I'm going to invite you into looking into your space more deeply and asking yourself questions as I field them previous to doing a tapping session. So I'm going to take about a 3-minute break here and give you time to do that. Actually, it will be a 2-minute break, and then I'll come back after that. So see you in a bit.
Organic Frequency Radio Show is 1.5-hour live chat with Stephanie and Oksana and their lovely guests about the nature of existence and holistic way of living here and now, and perhaps even after. Join us every Monday at 6:30 p.m. Pacific Time. Call-in number to listen live is 929-477-1183, and to ask a question, press 1 to connect to the studio. Our guests share their stories and walking path of their healing, along with services that they have developed and packaged for the rest of the world to experience and benefit from. We're here to hold a space for an exchange of experiences for the purpose of evolvement and expansion of consciousness.
Hello and welcome. You are now entering the corridors of Twilight Epiphanies Talk Radio with your host, Cindy Magnuson. premiering Thursday evenings, 7 to 8:30 p.m. Central Standard Time on Feminine Frequency Radio Network. You are invited on a talk radio journey to the center of self. Join us as Cindy guides you, the listeners, in sensory and perception upgrades where revelations and golden epiphanies pierce the veils of illusion. Don't miss this opportunity for your next dose of Twilight Epiphanies. Okay, and hello everyone. So again, anyone who is interested in participating in this part, we are going to be working on writing down some. First of all, we are going to start with focus, okay? I want to tell a little bit of a story about focus and how important it is that if you are doing an intention setting to make a shift and a change, to stop everything else that you're doing and create the space with your focus and intention, okay? So when I, in the past, going back 10 years or so already now, I would have headaches. And at that time, I wasn't aware of where they were coming from. So they would go into a migraine sinus type headache. Well, I would begin to simply tap on the headache with the affirmation statement that even though I have this headache, I deeply and completely love and accept myself, saying that 3 times and then going through the procedure and tapping. And as I came around the facial points, which were the stomach meridian there, I began to sneeze hard 7 times, 6, 7 times in a row, really deep, and the headache would go away. And it would be an immediate relief of the headache. And what was happening there was I was sneezing out the frequencies in something that was causing discord inside me and giving me a headache. And I'm going to take there's going to be an additional note on that, but let me finish this story right now for where this goes. So I became accustomed to using the tapping, and I would immediately sneeze. So another day along the line, I am wake in the morning, I have the headache, but I'm too lazy to go over and do a tapping session. So I'm walking around, I'm doing Reiki symbols in my head, I am intending the Reiki to come on, I am doing affirmational statements in my head, and I do this for about half of the day until I say, Cindy, stop everything else and go sit down and do a tapping session. This is a serious one. And as soon as I went to sit down, I sneezed 6, 7 times, and 80% of that headache was gone. And the significance of that is that while I was attempting to do other things, continue with housework, and keep all my attention also in other areas, there was not enough focus. Focus compresses an electrical charge. That's what focused attention does. That's what Reiki does. That's how it is working. We have focused attention. It compresses an electrical charge, brings coherency to an area, and adds energy to the area. So very significant on a continued frame thinking in regarding a headache. I do not like to stop there with use of EFT or applying a higher perspective. If I have a headache coming up, what's the use of simply using EFT to rid myself of it if potentially I could figure out that there is something that is giving me that headache? And at that time, that's when I started to look into food issues and, of course, started to eat healthier, and the headaches went away. Now, there are, I also want to say, circumstances where we are being exposed to things that we don't have the choice of immediate elimination. So as a backup tool, I do use emotional freedom technique and recommend it when you can't remove the source. But optimally, there are very creative ways also to work with that in language. For instance, let's look at the chemtrails. So should we say we have to just accept what's happening, or do we have a power within us? And even what this little technique showed here, that we can shift into a space where the negative effects of that are unable to affect us because it won't hold in our energy field. It'll be cast off. So we leave that space open. I have used emotional freedom technique in earlier points in my life when, in scanning a person in front of me, I knew that they were having a stomach issue. And I said, I don't know where to advise you to go, but I believe that where you are having an issue with walking right now, which is why she asked me in, the doctors wanted to put her on steroids for the rest of her life for an autoimmune issue. And she didn't want to do that. So she came to me and I scanned her and I said, okay, I feel a burning in your stomach and it's dietary, but I don't know what to tell you about this. At that time, I didn't understand enough about dietary back then. And what we did was we creatively used an EFT session to open up what she needed to bring to her in information and give her that information. And it happened. It happened in conjunction with where she was traveling. She saw a chiropractic office that reminded her of something. She went there, she got on. She found out when she walked in the door that she was allergic to soy as a vegetarian, and she did not go on steroids. After that, she ran a marathon, and she had been in a space where she could hardly walk from the inflammation in her legs. The chiropractor told her that the soy was causing inflammation in her stomach, and that was going down her legs. And she's a mother of 2 beautiful twins. So that is how we have to be creative with EFT. Okay, so let's get on to where you are at right now. So if you have your paper in front of you, I would like you to draw a line across the top of the paper about, say, 2 inches down. And in the top of that space, you are going to put in there the focus of what you would like to work on today. Whatever issue it is, whatever you would like to shift and change, I always say, sit down and think about what is causing you to go out of balance in a happy place the most right now in your life. And in your own words, write that situation down across the top of the paper. Doesn't matter if it's a few words, a couple sentences, it doesn't matter at all. That is the focus. This is going to be part of your setup phrase. And in the first session when I do it with you today, we're going to work a little bit what I call more of my umbrella session. So we're going to open up the potential for other areas under this issue to come in, and we're going to tap on it in a slightly more general format to begin, and then we'll give you the opportunity to go in more detail, and I will be explaining that. So next after this, and I'll explain a little bit about the affirmation beginning as a setup phrase. I begin with our hands over our heart, and this is where we do 3 statements that get our focus and intention in a more direct space. We make the statement 3 times. 3 lines coming together is the first shape that is formed. So 3 is a powerful creation number, and that is part of why we say it 3 times here. So Gary Craig began his work utilizing the statement, even though I have this blank, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. And you're going to fill in the blank with that above area there that you are working on. Now, what Gary Craig found out is that guilt, blame, and shame are what's connected into even people having a difficulty saying, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. And there are ways around this. When I'm working today, you are in a space called what Gary Craig called borrowing benefits. No matter what statements, if I'm doing some affirmational statements here for you and you are listening at a time and simply tapping, it is not possible for you to tap in something negative into your energy field. It's not possible for you to accept something that's not true. What you will do as you're listening is your mind will shift it into a perspective that fits for you better. So when I maybe am saying I deeply and completely love and accept myself, skip it or change it. Say, well, I like myself right now and I'm going to work on that, whatever it is. And the truth is, I have had definitely a percentage of people here, maybe 20%, who aren't comfortable stating that. I will say that it's a little bit more often men feel more uncomfortable making that statement. And Gary Craig realized that sometimes 40% of our ability to heal ourselves is trapped within this space of not being able to acknowledge that I love myself even though I have this particular situation. It is immediate self-forgiveness. And it may sound unusual that someone might have a difficulty forgiving themselves, but it is very true. Many people have very challenging spaces forgiving themselves. So if you find that in the situation here, then what might be best for you is to work with the phrases, even though I'm challenged with loving myself, it's okay. I'm just going to go with the flow here. So that phrase can be changed according to how you need it. Next, I'd like you to divide the rest of the page in half. And then on the left side of the page, now that you have the situation that you're going to focus on, I'm going to start reading some questions that start to field you to start to write down on that left side of the page as much as you want to write, as briefly as you want to write. It doesn't matter. There is no right or wrong here. So you're going to begin with writing down, and you can begin right now. What negative statements do you make about this situation? Why is it negative to you? What are your true feelings of it? I want you to begin to ask yourself what type of anxiety it brings up. Does it bring up a fear? What is the emotion that it seems to trigger in there? Does it trigger sadness, loneliness, anger, resentment, defeat, boredom, abandonment, grief? What emotion may be connected in there? As you're looking at it deeper, we want to explore, are there any limiting beliefs in there? Programmed negative beliefs in there? I don't even want to try because every time I try, I fail. That's a self-programmed belief here. A fear of failure. And why a fear of failure? Because there is a charged emotional experience from the last time that you perceived the experience as a failure. Because it's not a failure. It was an experience. It was not failure. Life is not failure. It is experiences. Always, always experiences. And reframing it in that manner is much more gentle and truthful. What's happened in past spaces is that even an inner child space has had an experience where they've looked at and stored the situation into misconceptions about themselves, sometimes low self-worth, low self-esteem. It was my fault, obviously, because it's happening to me. Why am I not loved? I am not deserved. They're deserving of love because I'm not receiving love here. And those perceptions are misconceptions. And that's what we're going to be moving into. Also here, so start to write down. If it's weight loss, what do you say to yourself? Do you have a part of your body that you don't like? Is there a part of your body that every time you look in the mirror, it just makes you feel bad about yourself? That is an area that you would put onto this left side here. So what we are doing is bringing up what is stored in there through questions and going in deeper here and writing this down. I would in person go a little bit more slowly with this, but we're going to kind of do, like I said, this little bit of an umbrella session and just see what we can work with here while it's in this different setting. So, is there a downside to you accomplishing what you would want to accomplish? Are you afraid to move forward? If you think a little bit deeper about changing the situation you're in, does it make you feel fear to move into that space? That means that there are charged emotions of misconceptions from memories from the past that we can reach in there. Start to write those down. Can you recall other situations in time where you felt this way that you want to note? Is there a childhood space that springs into your memory here where you had this type of fear or feelings about yourself? And write that down there. So when we are in this first round of tapping, what I'm going to do is I am just going to call out the next tapping point as I guide you. I'm going to give you a little bit of time before I call out the next one. And what you're going to do is just begin to read this left side here, even if you repeat it 2 times in a row. I'm going to take us a couple times through. Now, what we are doing is associating a past space with a fight or flight, heightened emotional, traumatic, often traumatic space, and we are reassociating it with the calming effect of the parasympathetic nervous system. This is doing an acupressure treatment on yourself while you also have the memory in mind, okay? So it's stored in pictorial form, it's stored in audio form, it's stored in sense of smell form, everything including what you were eating in a younger space that this may be related to, or a different teenage space that it was related to, whatever you're thinking of. Okay, let me go back just a little bit. So the space that I started us out with, current in your life, is going to have, as we are going into these questions here, connections to a childhood space of a root issue here that took place. Hands down, when I work with people, I find that connection. They come in, they're like, nah, it can't be that way. Yes, it can be that way. There is very often a childhood belief that is fueling these continued experiences into your teens, into your 20s, 30s, etc., and all the way up to wherever you're at right now, and it still may be displaying itself. So in the initial situation when something is stored, it stores everything, what you were eating, what room you were in, who the people were, what was said, what was in the background, what room you were in, whose home you were in, the feel of everything, every sensory perception, the colors, all of those can be triggers. So that's how it is getting triggered in reality. So you probably by now have a few things written down there. So I'd like to begin a session right now. So with your paper in front of you, with your hands free, I'm just going to name right now the tapping points and tell you a little bit about it. You're going to tap with your dominant hand on either side of your body. It doesn't matter. One finger, two fingers, or a clump of finger, doesn't matter. We're going to tap on the crown of the head, on the middle eye, in the middle of the forehead, the beginning of the eyebrow where it begins near the nose, the side of the eye on the bone, under the eye on the bone directly under the pupil, under your nose, directly in the middle between your nose and your upper lip, in the middle of your chin. The collarbone point is from the sternal notch. You go 1 inch down and 1 inch over to either side. Generally, we are tapping light to moderate 5 to 7 times. And then you're tapping with your dominant hand onto your non-dominant hand. If you are right-handed, you are tapping on the right nail corner of each finger. If you are left-handed, you are tapping on the left nail corner bed of each finger, the lower corner, and then the karate chop point. So the side of the hand under the baby finger, you are chopping on that, tapping on that. Okay. So let's take a seat back, and we're going to begin with 3 deep breaths here. As you expand slowly in, inhale through the nose, letting your abdomen expand out. And as you come back in, contract the abdomen in, exhaling through the mouth at your own pace. Okay. And from this space, I am going to initiate stating the affirmation beginning setup phrase. I'm going to do that 3 times. When I pause, you are going to fill in the blank. When I state to begin tapping, you can move to the next tapping point, and as you're doing that, you are reading off of that left side of the paper and just continuing to repeat those phrases. This is reassociation here. When I end, we will end with the hands over the heart, and I'm going to stay in that space just a little bit before we come out of it right away. Even though I have this fill in the blank, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. Even though I have this I deeply and completely love and accept myself. Even though I have this, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. And tapping on the crown of the head, the third eye, the eyebrow point, either side, both sides, it doesn't matter. Side of the eye, under the eye, under the nose, the chin, the collarbone point, and now tapping on each lower corner nail bed of each finger, pointer finger, middle finger. Continue reading. Ring finger, baby finger, karate chop point, and hands back over the heart. And we're going to take a deep breath in again. And exhale. And come back in. Okay. Now, that I would have liked to do beforehand, but we will complete it right now, is that normally before we look at on a scale of 1 to 10, what was your stress level, 10 being the worst, needing an emergency room, concerning this particular space that you are working with? And from then, that point on the scale to now, have you shifted when you think about it? So again, when you think of it, is there any shift in your energy field? Okay. Whether that's 1 point, 2 points, 7 points down, document that. Okay. So write that down. So within this space and bringing you inside, you had the opportunity as you were reading this also to potentially have different emotions come up. Document those down and work with that. And we are going to, when we come back from this commercial break, we are going to move into a space where we are now going to work with neutralizing. So in this first space, many people, just by doing the tapping and the initial, with the initial imbalanced aspects, have a significant drop. Now we're going to go in deeper when we come back and work with aspect development, what we call, to neutralize some of the components that came up for you. I am going to lead an affirmational statement where you're going to listen when you come back and learn a little bit about rephrasing. It's going to be general, but again, the underlying energies that you may need may shift you in there. So I'm going to go to another commercial break, and I will again see you in 2 minutes.
Organic Frequency Radio Show is 1.5 hour live chat with Stephanie and Oksana and their lovely guests about the nature of existence and holistic way of living here and now, and perhaps even after. Join us every Monday at 6:30 p.m. Pacific Time. Call-in number to listen live is 929-477-1183, and to ask a question, press 1 to connect to the studio. Our guests share their stories and walking path of their healing, along with services that they have developed and packaged for the rest of the world to experience and benefit from. We're here to hold a space for an exchange of experiences for the purpose of evolvement and expansion of consciousness.
Hello and welcome. You are now entering the corridors of Twilight Epiphanies Talk Radio with your host, Cindy Magnuson, premiering Thursday evenings, 7 to 8:30 p.m. Central Standard Time on Feminine Frequency Radio Network. You are invited on a talk radio journey to the center of self. Join us as Cindy guides you, the listeners, in sensory and perception upgrades where revelations and golden epiphanies pierce the veils of illusion. Don't miss this opportunity for your next dose of Twilight Epiphanies. Okay, hello again, and let's continue. So assess your emotional space right now and complete taking any of those notes of whatever came up during that time. Now on the right side of the page, I'm going to first of all talk about and have you begin a little bit of doing them on your own, neutralizing those statements. So neutralizing a statement means now you are going to look at some of the negative dialogue in there and work with it in a frame of reference that your inner self is accepting. So let's say, for example, that someone had, as I stated earlier, a negative reaction or a lack of comfort with saying, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. That would be a space where you would begin to say, even though I do have this, I am choosing to keep the door open to inviting me being able to love myself more. Okay? There's a comfort level in there where the person doesn't have to commit to something that they don't feel ready yet, and they slowly open the door. So from whatever you have on the left side of the paper there, let's say if it's weight loss and you are having difficulty getting to the gym, you think about going in the door, and every time you think about going in the door back into the gym or something, or starting up an exercise program, it's a negative reaction, so you don't start again. So one of your statements on the left side of the paper may be, oh, I hate starting up again. It's just so hard. Or I feel embarrassed that I've let myself go and it's hard for me to walk back in the door. How could you neutralize that? You could neutralize it by just proclaiming, no matter what that old voice wants to say, I enjoy going back to the gym. So what would happen if you tapped all the way through many times, I enjoy starting up my exercise program. I enjoy starting it. I enjoy giving myself just a little goal at first and expanding it up as I want to. It's okay. I forgive myself for not getting back to the gym earlier. I forgive myself for having this negative feeling about everything, which forgiveness is an aspect that we are bringing in here as part of the new dialogue. So actually, it's the first space. You have already forgiven yourself in the space when you are stating, I deeply and completely love myself no matter if this is happening. That's huge. For me, it's kind of like looking at that little voice that's been there hanging around for a while, and I like to say to it, you thought you had me, but I was letting you hang around for that little bit of time, and now that I know exactly what you're about, here's a dose of medicine that you can't refuse. And you begin to neutralize it. Now you know what it's about. you have information. You can neutralize those statements with new statements. I love starting up exercise again. I love making dietary changes. I forgive myself for having these negative feelings about making dietary changes. I forgive myself for the resistance I had. I forgive the people around me who hurt me in this situation. I forgive the people who made me feel different, not as beautiful, guilty, shame, whatever it is. So forgiveness is opening a door, and now with a little bit more time, we would talk a little bit more about forgiveness. Forgiveness does not mean surrender to it happening again in your life. You are an adult now. You do not have to experience that same initial experience, and you have the ability to not accept other people's weaknesses as part of a projection of who you are. So if someone's having a weakness and they do something inappropriate that hurts us, we have to learn, of course, to understand that they're coming from a weak space and that we are not what we think they are projecting at us and having us feel that way. So in all cases, in an inner child space, there's always a space where you want to help a very deep part of you understand that if the adults around you were healed, they would have not made the weaker choices that were made. We can forgive for that reason. Forgiveness doesn't mean that we open the door to it happening again, nor that we do not see that consequences and awareness of what happened need to be addressed appropriately. So we begin to introduce in here, so you can, if you feel brave enough, start to work on these statements. You might have a couple of them. I allow healing. I choose to heal this issue in my life. I choose to allow abundance into my life. And again, I'm going to make some of these statements aloud. You're going to be making them inside and maybe adjusting what I say specifically for yourself. But during this time, you're going to be getting feedback. What happens when you make the statement, I allow abundance, and you're referencing it to a situation where you need something? How much fear comes in? How much rebuttal comes in? Does any part of you argue with that? And what are the statements that it makes? Those are the programs that you want to fish out and clear here with the truth. So you may have written a few things. I am going to do a generic tapping session now where you are simply, I'm not going to call out the tapping points. I am simply going to be continuing. I'm going to say, start tapping. And then I'm going to say, okay, place your hands on your heart. And in the meantime, I'm going to be doing a generic language out. Now, what's going to happen is I'm going to just let it free flow and attempt to go into different areas. Some are going to pertain to you, some are not. But remember, it's still about underlying fear generally and shifting. You cannot have a negative aspect tapped into you. It's not possible. So that's significant, meaning that you do not have to worry if what I say doesn't pertain to you. Shift it inside. It's going to happen naturally. Shift inside. I have worked with groups. I've been tapping, and there's been spontaneous releases in the audience, and I was talking about something completely different. So allow the process of this group healing to permeate you without fear and openness. Only love here, only balance. We are attempting to work ourselves back to a coherent space of balance inside. So with your hands over your heart, you are going to be listening, but you also are going to be tapping in any of the points that you remember. If you remember a couple of them, just do it. Do not even worry if you tap. And when we begin here, but you can begin phrases to shift in your own mind. Even though I have this current space of struggle in my life, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. Even though I have anxiety and stress over the current challenges that I am facing, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. Even though I am feeling fear and overwhelmed with worry and concern, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. And you can begin tapping, going at your own pace. I'm choosing in the here and now and all dimensional spaces, past, present, and future, to release this imbalanced disruption, these triggers, these memories from a different time from my energy field. I allow healing in a pace that is specifically designed for my needs, my purposes, and are for my well-being. I choose to forgive at the level that I am ready to forgive at, people that I perceived hurt my feelings, that I felt attacked from. And most of all, I forgive myself for having the negative reactions, for going out of balance. I am choosing to release guilt, shame, and blame in all levels of my inner energy field. I understand that it is not necessary for me to hold on to false perceptions. I am choosing to take responsibility for my ability to clear my energy field from these spaces that have been repeating areas of contention, misunderstandings, limiting beliefs, untruths, feelings of low self-esteem, low self-worth, and being unloved. And I am opening the door to full and complete healing that is perfect for me at this current time. Even though I'm struggling with making the changes in diet, in exercise, in career movement, in receiving abundance, in being organized, I am choosing to shift my perception and allow myself to release from the fear of failure in even perceiving an event in my life as a failure. I am choosing to live again in the joy of my inner child, in the love and play, in safety and warmth happiness, and peace in the creative aspect of myself. And now I'd like you all to bring your hands back over your heart. And in this space, ask yourself at this time that the inner child in you that has the most to do with this particular space in your life to please come forward. And as you see that child, kneel down, look that child in the eyes, and tell her or him that you are here now. You are here to help that child see the truth. It was not their fault. They are loved. They are safe. You are with them now. And it is your wish for them to come out, to play, to feel joy, to be spontaneous, and to not fear being vulnerable again, because they're with you now. And as you tell them how much you love them, you are wrapping your arms around them, bringing them into your heart to always be with you. I am joy. I am peace. I am serenity. I am love. I am play. I am happiness. I am truth. I am courageous. I am discerning. I am strong. I am organized. I am free. So be it. And from here, again, slowly come up and take a deep breath in and exhale. And give yourself time here to assess the light feelings. Are you more joyful? Anything that shifted for you? Many times people are more aware of their energy field. They feel the vibrating, the lightness, the tears, the happiness of being joined to the child again. And here you can look at, has your energy field shifted from the initial space that you began? Did any memories come up and what was taking place? And this is a nice place to sit, to enjoy the different brain waves, the peace, and the lightness that often comes. Okay, so I'm going to bring us a little bit back in, come up from that a little bit more. Again, this is not something to do while driving a vehicle, and make sure that you are grounded and have your balance well. Okay, so we are nearing the end time of the show. We have just about a little under 8 minutes left. And so to summarize here in that guided session, you have a mechanical start and an energy experience. And from my heart to yours, I hope in all ways that you were able to reach a place, I can feel the emotions, a place where sadness was trapped, and a place that's been sitting there, repressed and unable to reach you. And as time goes on, with each show that I do, I would like to look more at reading the signs that help us to continue to connect to these spaces where parts of ourselves have not been allowed to grieve properly and love themselves. So as we're ending here, anyone, I would enjoy very much if you enjoyed the show today and experienced some positive changes in any way. If you have the opportunity to post that on any of my pages on Facebook, which is Cindy Magnuson, or it's marked as Source Energy Epiphanies, but you go to @theseetechnique on Facebook or on Feminine Frequency Network Radio under any of my show posts. My time is a little limited with being able to field a lot of questions, but I'm going to try to give maybe about 3 hours each week to answering questions when I can with people in spaces. Also, if you are interested in my work, I can be reached at theseetechnique@gmail.com, and you can go at my website, theseetechnique.com, and look up any of my services if you are in need. So to finish off, next week is going to be all things numerology. And there is a website called decoze.com, DECOZ. And I use Hans DeCoze's numerology program. So there is a free application. At the time, I do not know if he gives you the numbers chart, the color number chart anymore, but he does give you all your calculations, I believe, with maybe an 8-page free report. So if you would like to, you can get that chart to begin, or find something else online, or you've been exposed to numerology already. I'm going to help us to read that chart. From reading hundreds of charts, I look at the energy story in there a little bit differently, and it's very informative. And I really appreciate the simplicity of numerology, that within a short period of time, I can work with you and have you reading your own chart and understanding it for guidance and advice. And we're going to be talking all about the different aspects of that. Other than that, if you go on my website, I do have a 45-page report. It's computerized, it's single-spaced, it's an enormous amount of data. It's all the foundational energies that are in your chart, plus 3 years I give you in that. And it's a $25 package if you are interested in that before the next show. If you mention the show when you are ordering it, that is by email, contact me, and I will give you a $5 discount. So next week we're going to be looking at that, and how can we understand ourselves a little bit more deeply by looking at then, when we came into this incarnation, what story were we already connected into? And that is going to be a continuance of what you already looked at today. Okay? And of course, today we have skimmed the surface on how very deep you can go in with emotional freedom technique and utilize it. But remember, in ending here, there are no rights or wrongs with it. You can use it in simplicity with, like I said, with a headache. All I was saying was this headache, this headache, this headache. And because, of course, that was an issue that just came up from eating a food substance, it wasn't an ingrained space. So it wasn't a long-standing situation. It was able to immediately release right there just within a quick one-round session. But it can be applied as deeply as you would like to go in. And mostly you want to become creative in ways to neutralize that negative programming and keep it from being a part of the conditions that you remain in and are fearful from leaving. So as we round up, the most important space is to remember self-love and self-forgiveness immediately. At any time when I am experiencing a space of challenge, and I definitely am the queen of walking through challenges and using my tools in order to keep me balanced. And whether I fall out of balance, I still come right back up and in order to manage spaces that are more difficult. So self-forgiveness is first. Even though I have this situation, I still love myself, or I still can love myself. So thank you, everyone who is listening now, who is able to join in live, and everyone who will listen afterwards. I'm looking forward to next week already and being here again. So I wish you all a beautiful, happy week ahead. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.